Today we are examining aesthetics in the algorithm age. We will examine identity through the lens of history and human behavior. This examination explores humanity, morality, and self-expression. How can one attain a sense of authenticity while navigating the modern landscape of algorithms and consumerism? My first case study comes from cinema. The film The Neon Demon, directed by Nicholas Winding Refn, presents poignant observations about the connection between beauty and humanity, beauty operating as currency, and the comparison of spontaneous beauty versus contrived beauty. In the film, fashion director Roberto Sarno said, "Beauty isn't everything, it's the only thing." But even more poignantly, he demonstrates that contrived beauty can only ever be a second-rate version of real beauty.
Dean, we're having a little debate over here. We need your expertise.
Okay.
You know Gigi, right?
Well, I mean, we just met.
Wait, will you stand up so that he can take a look at you? Go on, stand up. Well?
Well, what?
What do you think? Do you think she's beautiful?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I guess she's fine.
Yes, that's exactly the word that I was looking for. She's fine, right? You can sit down now, thanks. Thank you, Dean. Now, look at Jessie. Nothing fake, nothing false. A diamond in a sea of glass. True beauty is the highest currency we have. Now, without it, she would be nothing.
I think you're wrong.
Excuse me?
I said, I think you're wrong.
So are you going to tell me that it's what's inside that counts?
Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
Well, I think that if she wasn't beautiful, you wouldn't have even stopped to look.
The subtext of this important scene suggests that Gigi and the other models who optimized their beauty with procedures are nothing, because their beauty is contrived rather than organic. Jessie's friend Dean challenges Roberto's judgment because it's what's on the inside that counts. Roberto quickly rebuttals, stating that if Jessie hadn't been so beautiful, Dean wouldn't even try to get to know her on a personal level. And as is evident through the scene, Dean had no response to this. Though the subtext of this exchange is harsh, the overarching message holds up to scrutiny. The women among Jessie are like AI art. Their form is carefully constructed, using plastic, metrics, and science, while Jessie's raw form of beauty requires no calculation, because it just is. The other models envy what she has. They endure consultation after consultation, hoping to achieve what was organically formed in her mother's womb. And deep down, they know that science and innovation will only ever result in a second best option. And this makes Jessie not only a prize, but she is also a timid fawn held up to the capricious and competitive nature of the beauty industry. The others lie in wait, ready to sabotage her at the first opportunity presented.
You're just so beautiful. Don't you think that she's just perfect?
Is that your real nose?
Yeah.
God, life is so unfair.
Gigi just got out of the body shop. She's still a little sensitive. You had work done?
You say that like it's a bad thing. Sweetie, plastics is just good grooming. I go to this guy in Beverly Hills.
Andrew.
Dr. Andrew.
She's in love with him.
Of course I love him. Look at me. He calls me the bionic woman.
Is that a compliment?
As the film goes on, we see how the industry predictably capitalizes on Jessie's fragile, authentic beauty, while simultaneously failing to protect her from the envy that surrounds her. Spoiler alert, Jessie airily succumbs to the danger, underscoring the pervasiveness of envy and desperation, that in our pursuit of obtaining beauty, we won't think twice about blocking out the light of another. The relief it brings is fleeting, and there will always be another rare organic beauty on the rise. And it will be under the constant dread of envy. The context provided by this film serves to substantiate that beauty does in fact matter, whether it is within art, music, or people. Beauty matters always, and we intuitively recognize it within a haunting melody, a breathtaking face, or a masterfully evocative painting. It's the reason you chose one piece of art to feature in your living room versus thousands of others. It's why you chose black velvet curtains with sheer panels instead of practical, affordable beige curtains. Some would argue that beauty and vanity are inherently linked, and this film by Nicholas Winding Refn certainly proves that to an extent. Some would argue that their choices derive from practicality, and they may even feel morally superior to those who admit that beauty and aesthetics matter. We must also examine that humanity is not black and white. Humanity is layered and nuanced. Aesthetics and the algorithm. The prevalence and convenience of social media have formed an apparent disconnect between individuals and the masses. We are in a unique and challenging time of history because of the way technological advancements seem to cause humankind to revert in that sense. Through social media, we are exposed to countless opinions. The algorithm invites you to chase these voices and opinions rather than lending space to uncover your own voice. The Instagram algorithm, for example, is flooded with aesthetic content, which carefully curates striking visuals that may be appealing, but may not necessarily reflect our authenticity. The aesthetics really boil down to vibes. A very overused word, but it helps to get my point across. You see an image with a carefully crafted aesthetic or vibe, and soon there are thousands of accounts reconstructing that vibe. So if you're not cognizant, you may not even realize that your sense of style is being subliminally hijacked by technology. These adverts are made this way by design. Advertising tactics, whether they are large corporations or micro-influencer promotions, are designed using cookie-cutter templates that are not hand-selected for you. You try them on one after the other, hoping that something sticks. It is a one-size-fits-all template dispersed to the masses to maximize profits, while conversely minimizing our sense of self. In the end, you are left with less money and more stuff, feeling frustrated that you cannot properly articulate your identity. Aesthetic trends are diluted down to how something looks on social media. Playing into microtrends and stereotypes is problematic for many reasons. The office siren aesthetic, for instance, is a poor interpretation of an otherwise realistic style. What I find most curious about it is how it looks like a schoolgirl aesthetic rather than a successful, qualified woman. The miniskirts and knee-high length stockings resemble a tawdry DIY Hogwarts costume. It's not the kind of clothing someone wears professionally if they care about being taken seriously. The template of this aesthetic creates a caricature of the corporate girl, which is clearly constructed through the male gaze. These outfits look like restricted content, and it's such a waste because women are powerful, beautiful, and striking. History proves that. This message is not intended to shame women for having bodies and for emphasizing them. The message is to warn against the risks of leading into harmful patriarchal standards that detract from the value of women, especially in male-dominated spaces. The way this trend reduces women into objects of seduction rather than demonstrating that women can stand alone without serving some ulterior purpose for men undermines a woman's sense of dignity and autonomy. One of the worst offenses a woman could experience in the workplace is a man thinking her presence serves solely to be visually appealing to him or other men. These core fashion trends are just that, a trend that gets washed away with the next wave of vapid, algorithmic metrics. The second issue concerns the practicality of the clothing. Looking at these images of the office siren aesthetic specifically, it's apparent to me that the women in these photos are either not wearing these clothes to work, or they don't even work in a corporate setting. Those who do work in corporate environments know that it entails hours of sitting, walking back and forth from meetings and training, standing in elevators, standing for presentations, running errands, driving to meet clients, business trips, traveling, etc. These clothes are not practical for the environment or the occupational standards. Can you imagine pulling your skirt down every time you need to stand because if you don't, someone will see more than they should? The lack of practicality offers something more akin to cosplay rather than a sustainable model of fashion. These core trends reinforce harmful stereotypes that women in previous generations fought tooth and nail to eliminate. Within these trends, people become characters rather than dynamic humans. Trends are largely driven by hype because people see what looks good on someone else, not realizing that the aesthetics are fabricated into a template that may not be easy to replicate, especially if the aesthetic doesn't gel with your personality or your life. The moral dimensions of Japanese aesthetics. Our second case study is referring to a writing by Yuriko Saito, published in 2007, titled The Moral Dimension of Japanese Aesthetics. In this highly influential piece, Saito describes the long-held Japanese aesthetic tradition to be morally based by promoting respect, care, and consideration for others, both humans and non-humans. Although both moral and aesthetic dimensions of Japanese culture have independently received considerable attention by scholars of Japanese aesthetics, culture, and society, the relationship between the two has yet to be articulated. The takeaways pertinent to our discussion include how Japanese aesthetics integrates moral values promoting respect for both humans and non-humans. How design practices emphasize innate characteristics of materials fostering a moral sensibility in everyday life, and how tea ceremonies and art forms illustrate aesthetic expressions of care and consideration for others. The piece demonstrates the connection between beauty and morality by examining the philosophies and practices of Japanese traditions, such as the tea ceremony. The Japanese tea ceremony and other traditions promote the creation of a beautiful and pleasant experience for others, and it regards this practice as a moral obligation. Aesthetics apply to all five senses, not just how something looks. The social norms of this framework require one to consider the overall experience people will have in their presence. What will they smell? What will they touch and feel? How will they feel? What will they see? What will they taste? The framework demands that one remains composed and measured in their movements, never rushed or frantic, as being frantic is not only visually displeasing, but emotionally and energetically displeasing to your environment. Becoming aware of your impact on the environment invites you to control your impulses, providing the best possible experience for yourself and others. An example of Japanese etiquette versus United States etiquette is the differences in wrapping and opening gifts. In the United States, we have grown accustomed to difficult packaging that often makes opening presents a stressful experience. You might become flustered or impatient, and the next thing you know, you're running to the junk drawer for scissors. Japanese customs require simple packaging for products and gifts, which allows the recipient to gracefully and calmly open their present. Have you ever had a loved one prank you with a gift that starts off in a very large box, and as you open it, each box is smaller until you finally uncover the gift? In the US, this is a prank intended to poke fun at or get a rise out of someone. The layers serve as barriers with the intent of causing impatience and a form of entertainment for everybody watching, and it's at the expense usually of the person opening the gift. While we see this practice as a harmless joke that in some cases demonstrates a sense of care, the Japanese would see this as rude and inconsiderate. Japanese customs may create many layers for the recipient to open, ensuring those layers do not present any difficulty or stress to open, because this practice demonstrates to the recipient that the gift is special since it takes more time to reveal it. The emphasis is on the time taken rather than the creation of frustration or a prank. A person's time is arguably their most valuable currency because once it is gone, you cannot get it back. The belief maintains that causing someone stress or embarrassment when giving a gift is insulting because you are not fostering a pleasant experience and you further waste their time. The customs boil down to consideration for others. How much you consider the other person's experience is directly linked to your level of respect and care. Reviving your authenticity. Discovering or rediscovering your authentic self can be challenging in this modern landscape. The groups constantly telling you who you are range from your family to the internet, the trends, and the psychological warfare carried out by the media. Spending too much time online can be a detriment to identity and confidence. So an easy first step is limiting your time on social media, especially the time spent swiping in algorithm-run feeds. Consider perhaps for the first time in a long time visiting a local store or thrift boutique. You may not realize how influenced you are by how a garment looks on someone else, for example, a model on a website. The benefit of shopping in person is seeing the pieces on a blank mannequin or on the hanger. This allows you to try on the garment without any expectation, and it will help you to not compare yourself to unrealistic beauty standards represented on websites and in catalogs. Opting for thrift or secondhand stores decreases your contribution to landfills, which is a realistic way to counter consumerism. You'll get a clearer sense of what suits you by shopping offline. Rather than reconstructing an aesthetic or style, take a small element of that and construct your own interpretation of it. Style and expression should reflect who we inherently are, but the process of properly expressing oneself is not necessarily linear. It's not really a destination. For many, the process of self-expression is an ongoing process as you uncover your sense of self through time and experience. Shopping for anything in retail often becomes a matter of choosing between quality versus quantity. If you wish to remain mindful, you should never sacrifice quality for convenience. Sometimes that means socking away money to get a higher quality item at a higher price. If the item is built to last, then the value is inherent. If an item is too accessible, then quality may have been foregone. We see this with fast fashion. It's good for our wallets and our impatience, but it's awful for our environment and the longevity of small brands. So how can we navigate the oversaturated market of aesthetics? One approach is to take the attributes of your personal character and represent them in your aesthetic, basically translating the observable elements of self into physical adornments. A different approach is to not choose at all, because who says you must choose one aesthetic? The benefit of this approach is removing focus from how I look to others and aiming the focus on how I feel in whatever I'm wearing. This is different than picking an identity each day that you will discard because it now bores you. Fast fashion easily creates this negative feedback loop. Breaking free requires careful consideration. The etymology of aesthetics encompasses all senses. It is not just limited to a visual impression. But with the age of social media and micro-influencers, the term aesthetic has been melted down to just one sense. What do I see? All other nuances are taken for granted. When you allow the algorithm to choose your aesthetic, the clothes wear you. The simplest approach is to pay attention to why you choose to wear the things you wear. Is it because social media suggested it? Because your friends wear it? Because your religion requires it? At this point, you can begin to deconstruct the elements that subconsciously dictate your sense of self, and by proxy, your expression of self. Through this process, you may find that there are subconscious elements deciding so much more than what you wear. Perhaps they dictate what you eat, where you go, the music you listen to, the shows you watch. This forced introspection can be deeply revealing to your underlying motives and subconscious choices, and if you find that the bulk of your identity is suggested to you by forces outside of you, then you can begin the work of recentering the self. It is by virtue a recursive process. As Byung-Chul Han so eloquently described, the human being lives backwards. He goes in the opposite direction. Simone Weil says so. Humans are violent. They destroy the environment. No animal is violent with nature except for man. He disturbs what he owes his life to. And how can you escape this upside down life? By living backwards. The backwards life lived by Byung-Chul Han entails sleeping during the day and working at night. His low-maintenance writing style results in 3 sentences of writing per day. His sensibilities are staunchly opposed to the hustle culture of modern-day life that has become so normalized. By his own account, he spends the bulk of his time caring for his plants and playing classical music. He makes room only for what matters, taking this concept of backwards living very literally. Going into my research, I was skeptical of the Japanese morality framework, but by the time I completed the script, I began to view my own behavior from a new perspective. In recent years, I got the idea to take gifts out of difficult packaging to make the gift-giving experience less stressful, and I do this mostly for children. My husband even picked up on my method during the recent holiday season. He noted my method, and when my gifts arrived in the mail, he consolidated them, removed the plastic packaging, and placed the items neatly into a simple box without tape. I found it sweet that he put so much thought into my gift. It built a low-grade level of anticipation because the box was nondescript, and I had told him that I didn't want any gifts this year. The presentation inside was beautiful and organized. The skincare product labels were visible, and there were candles and a robe folded neatly. He kept the tag on it just in case I didn't like the fabric or I needed a different size. He was both thoughtful and considerate. My reasoning for simplified gift giving was subconscious to a degree. In my extended family, we have a lot of children and gifts being exchanged during the holidays. Nothing is worse than a small child crying because they must wait 5 minutes to access a toy that they've been wanting for months. This can be a controversial perspective, though, because older generations tend to believe that patience is a virtue even for a 3-year-old. They assert that making the gift available immediately is a form of instant gratification. I disagree with that. I think it's hypocritical because these exact people have smartphones and smart televisions that provide instantaneous entertainment whenever they want it. So policing the patience of a 3-year-old when it's not even developmentally appropriate seems illogical. I apply this framework to hosting house guests as well. I ensure that common areas are neat and clean, that supplies guests may need are stocked and accessible. I ask ahead about food allergies and dietary needs, and these considerations come from my own unpleasant experiences while being a house guest. For me, it's not about impressions, it's about having consideration and respect for guests in your home. You may not be able to cater to every preference or make your home exactly like their home, but putting in extra effort shows that you care and it goes a long way. This framework I use doesn't come from the Japanese framework, but it is very similar to it. Since reading Saito's piece, I've been thinking about adopting more of the Japanese moral framework into my own life. Anyway, I'm thrilled to hear your thoughts in the comments. Does the Japanese moral framework seem reasonable to you? What moral frameworks do you follow in your own personal or professional life? How do you feel about the perspectives of Byung-Chul Han? I'm brand new to his work, and I plan to read more of it for future segments. The concept of living backwards described by him, I think, is profound, although I also recognize that it's not necessarily a realistic choice for most people. Perhaps it makes sense to live backwards more metaphorically. Perhaps we tend to search outside of ourselves for answers when we should be referring back to ourselves, inquiring within rather than looking for purpose in our careers, our significant others, or in superficial accolades. It makes me think, could a deep understanding of self be the cure for widespread suffering? If we had the time and freedom to explore ourselves and make time for the things that truly matter, how different would society be?